Hello there. So I thank you for you showing interest in actually listening to this. This is something that I felt like I wanted to do for a while now, and I was just thinking about it over the last couple days, and I decided to actually go ahead and do it. So let's begin. Well, I'm Hector. I'm 24 years old. I want to share my story from all the way when I was pretty much a kid to who I am now, and I would like to share my story of how I became who I am today, who I was, my opinions on it, the growth, all the bad, all the good. I want to share it all with you. So, let's start when I was about I think a good age to start out at is like around 5 or 6 years old, maybe. Around elementary school. So, first off, when I was a kid, I was very, very hyper. I was around the house, I was running all around the house, I was jumping on the couches, jumping over things. Hell, eventually, I got a skateboard and I would ride my skateboard down the hallway of my house, and it's not even that long. I would ride down it over and over, scuffing up my floor, and my mother would have to scrub and get the scuffs out, and I would get told, of course, so I had to kind of cut that out. But in any case, I was a really hyper kid. I was decently athletic, and the one thing that I really don't like about it about myself when I was little is that I was very, very antisocial. That was my biggest pet peeve about myself when I look back. If someone were to say hi to me in the street, I would not even reply. I would try to look away and pretend I honestly didn't hear them. I was so disconnected from everything. I didn't want to talk. I I don't know what was wrong with me. There would be times when I would be on my way to school when my mom was taking me, and my friends, people, my classmates would say hi to me, and I just wouldn't say anything back, and my mom would have to like nudge me over and be like, "Hey, say hi to them," and I would then give a very, very soft hi. Like, I wouldn't even give them a proper hello, a proper greeting. I would just say hi, and that would be it. There was Man, I was so I don't know what was wrong with me, but I look back on that and honestly with some disgust. I don't like it. It's who I was, and I'm I accept that that's who I was, but it's something I wish I wasn't. That persisted for a very, very long time. But let's continue. So I was antisocial. In school, I was a very quiet kid. I was a very intellectual kid. I was getting extremely good grades. I was getting 90s, of course, 90, well, no, letter grades. I was getting A's, usually. And it was up until about the fourth or fifth grade when I met my best circle of friends, where my grades started to dip. My grades went from A's, they started going to B's, and then they eventually started coming to C's. And that was because of, I would say there was about 3 friends, 4 friends that I was very close with, all the way from 5th grade, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. They know who they are. I'm pretty sure anyone who was in my class knew who they were as well. And I don't regret making friends with them. They're awesome. They were awesome people. I mean, I had fun. They helped me find a side of myself. They helped me talk a little bit more, and I gained a little bit of confidence in myself through it. To have someone that I could talk to seriously helped me with my antisocial behavior. But in the end, I was still very antisocial. I mean, hell, there's a point when you're shy, and then there's a point when you're antisocial. I wouldn't even, and it was especially apparent whenever I was spoken to by a girl. I was I was so antisocial when it came to girls. I wouldn't even look at them whenever I spoke back. Even in like the 6th grade, I remember I spoke to one of them. It took me a very long time to get comfortable with like one or two of them that were actually my friend. That's how bad it was when I was younger. I would use very short responses whenever I talked to them, to the point where I was just flat out boring. I'll say it. I was There was nothing interesting to talk about with me when it came to with girls. Because I was just overly shy. Of course, I got over it eventually. It probably took until about the 8th grade when I was able to actually hold a freaking decent conversation. But in any case, with my friends, I don't regret making friends with them. I was actually pulled aside by the teacher one day, and he spoke to me and said, "Why are you friends with them?" He probably didn't say it as bluntly as that, but that's the message that came across. He was saying, "Why you're such a smart kid, yet you chose the circle of friends that aren't particularly sharing your academic interest. Like, they weren't necessarily as focused as I would seem that I was." And that was a certainly a good point. I can't say he was wrong, but at the same time, is it appropriate to say that? It He was concerned for me, so I have absolutely nothing bad to say about him. He was a great teacher. I respected him, but that made me stop and think for a moment. Of course, I was insulted. I was like 12, 13 maybe. Like, who are you to say who I can be friends with? But that happened, and later on, after I graduated from elementary school, I went on to high school, I looked back on that, and I remembered it, and it made sense to me. But that's who I was. I went from being a model student to being kind of a slacker. Just sort of. I don't know. I changed. I went from being antisocial to actually talking a little bit, and through that transition, my grades have also dipped. A big part of me in elementary school was I also began playing video games a lot. And that continues to this day. I'm a gamer. I love playing video games. That is absolutely my passion. I'm pretty sure video games have also contributed in my grades going down quite a bit. There's no denying that. That's just how it was. If I were to say otherwise, I'd just be in denial. And that's just how it was. But let's move forward to high school. I will call elementary school and everything before that like the first major transitional period of when I was breaking out of my shell, per se. I didn't. It was almost to the point when I look back at myself, and I want to say I didn't really have a personality. That sounds harsh in my mind, but when you think about a kid who just will not talk to anybody. He he buries his face in books and he doesn't talk. Literally does not talk. Doesn't respond to you. He's he almost ignores you. Just cuts you off from him entirely. When you try and talk to him and make friends with him, he doesn't embrace it. Like, when you look at that's weird. There was definitely something wrong with me. And one more point, I actually went to therapy at one point, and that lasted for several years in elementary school. I forgot to talk about this. I had anger issues, and that was honestly a big part of it. I was bullied a little bit in elementary school, by some kids. I don't even remember who they were, but I was bullied here and there. And there were some points when I didn't want to go to school because of it. It would literally bother me that bad. And it was a weird combination because I would get bullied, yet I had such anger issues, and I would get into fights. I fought in that school more times than I can remember. I remember my brother telling me one time where I got into a fight with a kid, and we were in the hallway, and there was like some lockers or something along the wall, and a water fountain next to it. And my brother told me that I grabbed the kid, I threw him in between the lockers and the water fountain, and I started beating the crap out of him. I do not remember that whatsoever, but my brother says he remembers me doing that. So that should explain how how bad my anger issues were at that point. I was a kid who was very quiet, very antisocial, not just quiet, antisocial, had very few friends, was bullied, but was but had such anger issues where he will fight any kid that bother not any kid. He will fight a kid that wrongs him in a very serious way. Like I will fight you. I would fight you. There was no stopping me. I would go into a blind rage and fight. Like how does a kid get bullied with that inside of him? I don't know, but that was me. There were times when I really tried to hold in my anger, but I just exploded. I remember one of the assistant principal actually, he actually fired me. Well, not fired me. He suspended me one time, and I still showed up to school the next day. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell anybody. I just casually went to school the next day, and he didn't catch me, so that's good. But I got suspended for fighting. And the other times when I fought, I didn't get suspended, but they would, because it was by that time they knew me. They knew I don't want to say violent tendencies, because I'm not the one that starts the fights. No, I'm always the kid that has something happen to him, and then I just overreact. There was the one time that best describes my anger issues that I very vividly remember was I was sitting at lunch, and this kid walked past me I was sitting down at the long table with a bunch of students all along it, and there was some kid walking all the way across the lunchroom behind me. I assumed to sit down at the table behind me, and he held out his lunch bag, and it hit me. I turned to look over there, and his lunch bag hit me in the face. Like, it to me, at that point in time, he did that on purpose. Because how do you have your lunch bag at my face height, and as well at the same time holding it over on the side to hit me in the face with it when there's plenty of space in the aisle? So it was just a spark. I immediately got up. I football tackled his ass. I tackled him so hard across the lunchroom into a wall, and the wall wasn't even like a building wall. It was like a temporary wall that they made a small room out of the lunchroom. It was one of those walls, so it was a really loud thud on the other side, and people came running out of that little room. And it was already too late at that point. I tackled him from behind so hard against the wall. He fell down. I turned him around. He was on the floor, and I'm holding him with one hand up, and I am punching him as hard as I can, while some students are literally trying to pull me off of him, because that was at that point when my classmates already knew about my my anger issues. But it's a pretty hard. It was difficult for them to hold me back. I mean, once I was already on top of somebody, they literally needed multiple students to be able to pry me off of somebody. It was terrible. So it was also on the top of that where I legitimately had to go to therapy to fix this. It was something that was unavoidable. And through therapy, I I met a lady, I want to say her name. Her name was Deborah. I don't remember her last name, but I met Deborah and she counseled me for several years. I don't even remember how long it was. It was during elementary school, and I'm very grateful to her. Even now, I here and there I think about it, and all I remember is our last visit, where she wanted to say I was completely rehabilitated. I guess the right word is. I wouldn't know how to describe that, but where I was, I no longer had anger issues and I could resume life, let's say. I remember our last visit, she said, "I don't want it to end like this. You've come through a long road, and I would love to see you one more time." She said something along those lines, and sadly, that was the last time I saw her because I never, I hadn't returned to see her one more time. So, but she was an amazing person. In the beginning, I didn't really want to talk to her, and she somehow she somehow got me to open up to her through playing. I remember we would play Uno, back to back. We would play Uno. We would play a bunch of things, and she would talk to me about my feelings and where it all comes from, and things from the household, if there were anything, things from school, things that have happened. And she pretty much transformed me from the person I was, and I'm extremely grateful for that. Um, so that went on until about the 7th or 8th grade. I had to get that counseling, and after that, I talked a lot more. I had my I had my emotions in check. I was able to keep my anger down almost effortlessly to this point. Even today, it's extremely difficult to get me angry. I'm more of a sarcastic person in the face of adversity, let's say. So that's great. But now that I forgot to talk about that. I'm sorry for the long tangent. But now let's move on to high school. So after elementary school, we made the transition from being antisocial and anger issues being, my emotions being unstable. Side note, I was also extremely um vulnerable emotionally. I cried easily. If something bothered me, not even that much, if someone played a joke on me, like, "Oh man, I'm gonna take your, I don't know, take your milk during lunchtime. This is mine now. You're not gonna get a milk this lunch period because I'm taking this. You better go get another one." Something like that. I would tear up because I was just so freaking timid. Eesh. Oh my gosh, I cringe thinking about it. I was that bad. But after the therapy, that greatly lessened. I'm more in tune with my emotions at that point. Now high school comes around and I'm starting from the beginning. I don't have any friends. I have to go out, I have to open up, I have to break out of my shell even more now and talk to people along with keep my grades up and learn the material and everything. That was legitimately terrifying to me when I first got into high school. I went to MLK campus and I went to the High School of Arts and Technology. And I met a lot of great people there. A lot of the teachers I really wish I still knew, but I wasn't willing to return back to that high school afterwards. I went back to my elementary school for a couple times after I had graduated and talked to the principal and some of the teachers and stuff. It was nice. But high school, once it began, I was terrified. I was my class I stuck with for the majority of students in my freshman class I stuck with. thankfully. So that made it a lot easier. I want to say I was adopted by certain friends. One of them knows who he is. He was the polar opposite of how I was in the beginning of high school. I was very quiet. Of course, I was very quiet, but I spoke up when I needed to, so that's good. I wasn't antisocial. If someone spoke to me, I knew how to respond. I knew that I knew I had a voice. I could actually hold a conversation for more than 5 seconds instead of just saying, "Hi, I'm okay. The weather's nice," you know? So, that person knows who he is. He was extremely energetic. His hair just spoke for himself. He had he had an aura about himself in high school. He was extremely, he was, I want to say hyper. He was hyper in a way. He had a very bright energy about himself. And I had such a low key aura that was very reserved. That's the word I'm looking for. I was really reserved. I will talk if someone talks to me. That's how I was in high school. He would talk to somebody if he had something to talk about because he could, and he pulled it off quite nicely, I got to admit. But I was adopted by him, I want to say. We became best friends in high school. And to this day, I still, he's still a dear friend of mine. Everybody that I've encountered in elementary school, in high school, everyone that I've come in contact with, I honestly consider a dear friend. I care about everyone that I meet in some way. Admittedly, some more than others, for various reasons, but I won't get to that right now. Throughout high school, it was a weird journey. It was enjoyable. I loved high school. It was really fun with some of the teachers and the friends that I made. The circles of friends, how they interacted with each other. Oh my god, I almost said goths. The jocks, the jocks, the nerds. The typical high school social groups that everyone loves to say is there. I saw them. They were generally separated in certain ways around the lunchroom, but I never identified as one of them. I would always jump around throughout my 4 years. I went to one corner of the lunchroom. I would sit with a different corner. Probably the ones that I never really were all that buddy with were the jocks. If you can even call them jocks. They were we had a basketball team in our school and the soccer team. Especially the soccer team. Our school was like soccer champs for like a million freaking years. I don't even know how many times they were the soccer champs. But the athletic kids, they were over there doing whatever the hell they do. I wasn't really part of that. I was with just about every other group, and I had some friends that were athletic, but whatever. But I was just an overall friendly with everyone guy, so I didn't really have any problems in the friend department. Except for, close friends that I had very few close friends that I trusted, but in general, I was cool with just about everybody. I didn't talk to everybody per se, but I didn't have anything against them, and they didn't have anything against me. Except, some kids just like to make fun of others. If that may have been the case with me a couple times, but I really didn't care at all. I was at the point, excuse me, that was at the point after my therapy where I took anything negative and it became sarcasm, or I would just ignore it, so I really didn't give a shit, per se. So high school was nice. I had a large circle of friends, and when it came to senior year, when we all went on our senior trip, it was amazing. I forgot the name of the place we went. Something Valley, Frost Valley. I forgot what the hell it was called. It was an awesome trip. It really made me like value. It made me think about how much I value my friends. Honestly, it made me think a lot about what I've been doing the past 4 years, even the past 12 years at that point. where I've made it, how I am now. I went from being an extremely quiet kid to someone that can actually talk with people and have a sizable amount of friends compared to probably the, I don't know, five that I used to have before in elementary school that I actually trusted, and then everyone else that I was kind of cool with. It was really nice. I played, of course, I had, my games that I played with my friends. There was actually a point when I went to a tournament, or a couple of tournaments for Super Smash Brothers with one friend in particular. Well, a couple of friends, but one of them mainly got me into it. But I fell out of that scene. He's still doing it. Props to him. He knows who he is. And I mean, I'm honestly proud of him. He's doing great in that department. I love all the things that they've been doing. I see the events going on. That's awesome. I've actually considered going back to it if you're listening. But all that stuff is great. I always think about my friends even today. But as of high school, my big hurdle, not hurdle. I didn't really have any hurdles in high school. No, the one big hurdle in high school was my personality. In freshman year, I was I was still discovering how to be open to everybody. I could talk if someone talked to me, but I still could not walk up to somebody and start a conversation. And that was all the way until 12th grade. Around the end of 12th grade, I was able to actually break out a little bit more, but um, I was more of a follower. I wasn't much of my own person, per se. And that's something that I still, to this day, just the same as my antisocialness, I look back on and I just hate it. Like, I didn't. If there was a question asked for all of our friends, they were like, yo, what do you think of this? And they'll be like, you know what, I kind of like it because of blah blah blah. And I'd be like, yeah, then I like that too. And like, I didn't really have an opinion, I just agreed with people. I was a yes man of sorts, you know? I didn't contribute. I was afraid of rejection. Not like relationship rejection. I was afraid of being shot down. Like, nah, man, I don't agree with you. That was a big fear I had all the way from elementary school. That was one of the reasons I was antisocial. I just didn't want to be shot down. Being shot down isn't nice, but it's not like your friends would shoot you down like that. It's just you always consider, well, I at the time considered the worst possible outcomes. If I were to say I like this game, and then my friend were to say that game was shit, I would have been crushed. Honestly, that's how. Ugh, it's terrible. Jeez. That's how I felt. I didn't like it. Getting told that something you like was garbage isn't a good feeling, and back then I was very susceptible to those feelings. But, I mean, honestly, I still felt like that even after high school. It wasn't until I was in trade school, um, like a few months later, that I even started to break away from that. And in trade school, well, first off, I wanted to do IT. I was gonna do computer stuff. That's what I've been doing. I've been gaming. I've been on my computer. At this point in high school, or at this point after high school, I've been using a computer that one of my friends in high school actually helped me obtain. And by the way, to this day, I'm still using it. You know who you are again. Thank you. I greatly appreciate your expertise before I was able to even learn it about the inner workings of a computer. I greatly appreciate everything that you did for me. I'm still using the computer. I'm using it to record this. Thank you. But I'm still I went to learn more about IT because that was genuinely what I wanted to do as a career. Because in around that time, after high school, or you know what, a year before I graduated, when they were saying everyone pick out colleges, my immediate reaction was, I'm not going to college. I wholeheartedly decided at that very moment when they asked, no college for me. It's not that I didn't want to go to college. It's more of I didn't want to go through the struggle that I've been hearing a lot of people in college go through, especially with student loans. Student loans is the number one thing, and at that time, I had a relative that was going through a student loan problem. They had a lot to pay back, and that was honestly something I was not thrilled to be exposed to. And I fully understood there was financial aid, but I was still deterred enough by the whole student loan thing. And on top of that, the one thing I discovered about myself was I didn't think I had the work ethic to do college, especially after doing school for 12 years plus. I say plus because of kindergarten and pre-kindergarten, even though they really don't matter. You don't get homework that much, but I say plus because I was in pre-K and kindergarten. But after doing all those years, back to back to back, and then gonna do college, I felt like it wasn't for me. College is a great place if you use it properly, and I encourage anyone who wants to go to college to do it. But I'm telling you to be mindful of what you do in college. Use the time wisely. Know what you want to do. If you don't know what you want to do, take some time and find it out. Because in college, the more time you're in it, the more money you're spending. So I decided not to go to college, and I knew immediately I wanted to do computers. So I wanted the most direct path, and one of my friends gave me that direct path in high school. He told me about the School of Cooperative Technical Education, Co-op Tech. And that was a trade school for a variety of trades, but mine especially was for IT. I went, it was completely free. Great plus, especially after my whole student loan doubts. Completely free. I went, they took me in, and I was there for excuse me. I was there for 3 years. Let me drink some water. Hold on. Okay, I was there for 3 years. I started off doing A+ computer repair, and I was gonna get certified, and it was a nationwide, a worldwide actually, certification that recognized around the world. So that would be the perfect foot in the door. I did that for a year. It was a year course, and I ended up not getting certified. I admittedly felt bad. I felt like I let myself down just a little bit. But I didn't let it get to me because my teacher was amazing. To this day, he is one of my favorite teachers that I've ever had of all time. I want to say his name. His name was Mr. Ochoa. Jose Ochoa. He is an amazing person. He was a very humble person, and I was disappointed that I didn't get certified, but more than that, I was extremely grateful to him as a person, because I may not have gotten certified, but he taught me everything I needed to know, or at least 90% of everything I needed to know, and he taught more things aside from just the IT or the A+ material. He taught so for this class, A+ computer repair, that encompasses a certain set of topics. Like, for example, taking apart a computer and knowing what each part does is essentially part of what that is. He also taught us, like, basics of programming, maybe the basics of making a website, and those things fall outside the realm of my A plus certification. He taught us a whole lot of other things that would seriously help us if we got a job, and that would help us make the bridging the gap to the next certification even easier. He was an amazing teacher in that aspect, and I greatly respect him for all the work and the dedication he put into that classroom, and he did all of that by himself. He didn't have an assistant in the room. So, and on top of that, at the end of our time, he showed us a movie. He showed us the movie Yip Man. It's an amazing movie. I recommend that that everyone watches it if you haven't already. It's Donnie Yen. He's great. You already know that. But it's a martial arts movie. It's about a man who it takes place around the time of World War II, I believe. And one of them practices Wing Chun. That is a type of martial art. And he doesn't take students. He just practices it for his own benefit. He enjoys it. But everyone in town says he's like the best martial artist and he should open up a school. But he never does. But he enjoys practicing it all the time. But then war strikes and a lot of misfortune follows him. And the story basically goes from there through all the hardships that he had to go through. And that movie really it's a movie about humility, about being humble. It's a really big movie on how to view the world, about just being a good person, doing the right thing. And that movie seriously touched me. It pretty much molded me into who I am today, in complete honesty. And I still I thanked him for that. I thanked my teacher for that. Because that after I watched that movie, I legitimately felt a change inside of me. Because the I by the time I was in trade school, I figured out who I was, and I was able to use my own charm here and there. You know, I finally got a sort of personality in check for myself, I want to say, compared to how I was in high school and especially in elementary school. I got a certain uniqueness to myself at that point. A year into trade school, especially with one of my friends who I really need to catch up with again. He was an awesome guy. He really like helped me find myself. But that movie especially did. It 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 showed me how I could better use my kindness, and I want to say how to better use my kindness to benefit others. I've always viewed being a good person, you know, doing the right thing, you know, helping others when needed, but through that movie, it showed me what I'm really passionate with. It showed that other people's happiness would in turn strengthen me and make me happier. I got certain inklings of that in high school as well. Whenever I helped a friend out, there was a point in time when there was a couple in high school that they both came to me randomly at different times, and they would they would tell me about problems they were having. They both came to me only like one day. I don't know, one of them I spoke to briefly on the train and I helped him out. And the other one I probably spoke to maybe 2 or 3 days. And they felt so much better afterwards. And I felt great. But at that time I wasn't able to fully grasp like how I felt about it. I wasn't able to etch it into who I was. That was just an experience that I wrote off as that was nice. After that movie, that it really left a lasting impression on me, and I stuck with it. So, um, so let's take a fast forward a year. After that, I went into the next class, Cisco Networking, and this story, there was a teacher there that I really did not get along with at all. For It was really apparent that he wasn't really a popular teacher, because I will listen to this. This is a direct quote. I kid you not. Listen to what he told us one time when a student was talking in class. He said, "Look, this is why you are here, because you need to pay attention, because in high school all you were doing was, talking and flapping your jaw," or whatever he said. "And that's why you ended up here. That's why you haven't gone on to be anything else." He said those things along those lines. He said that in front of the entire class. And I immediately took offense to that. That is not what you do as a teacher, especially after having an amazing teacher. That is not what you're supposed to say to students. That is not how you inspire them. You don't promote anything positive from saying that. So, from after that point, I had a certain ill feeling towards him. But I went through it. I wanted to do the class, and half a year passes, and the curriculum was online, so he had to give us the material. He had to give us access to the chapters online, and it was the first semester was done, so he had to log us into the second semester, and he needed to log me in, but I was missing a test from the first semester. So I told him give me the test so I can do it. And he never gave me the test. Strangely enough, it was the first day of the second semester, they told me, so I let it slide because he was busy getting the other 20 whatever students into it. So okay, but that went on for about a week. That I've been coming to class and having nothing happen with me. So that was seriously bothering me. And one day I've had enough after asking him every single day, twice, every single day I asked him, and he just didn't do it. At that point, I'm being neglected as a student. So I tell him off. I tell him off in the best way that I possibly could, in the most calm fashion. I didn't yell. I didn't, my tone of voice was acceptable, but he made it a big deal. And it was at that point that he sent me to the office, or rather I went, and the office told me to, the office told me to write a statement on why I would like a transfer. And instead of writing a paragraph, maybe a paragraph statement, something easy, I wrote an essay. I kid you not, I wrote a college-styled essay on why I believe he was unfit to be a teacher. And I don't regret that one bit. In my eyes, he was extremely unfit to be a teacher, with the way that he presented himself in class, with his tendencies and his comments, as well as the negligence that he demonstrated with me. There were times when we called him sleeping in front of the classroom. It was that bad. But I wrote that essay, and they called me into the office. They sat me down and we spoke about it. And they put me in a different class. And they put me in web design. That was okay. It was okay. I mean, I joined late, so I knew just about nothing, and I was extremely behind, but I was there. And I caught wind from one of my friends that was still in the class that he's like a changed man after that. So they had to have shown him that essay that I wrote. or discussed it with him in some way, and they were saying that he was like teaching differently. His aura changed. It's almost like he began to care. So I somehow influenced that. I had to have. Somehow my departure, my I want to say dramatic, but my necessary departure and backlash, I want to say, caused that to happen, and I was relieved. I was honestly relieved that it happened. Honestly, I don't want to say I was afraid, but I was wondering what the consequence of that would have been, what the result of it would have been. And to find out that he changed his teaching style really it it relieved me almost for future students. And especially for the students that were there now, he even made an announcement saying that our dear student Hector is no longer with us, and I took a slight sarcastic offense to it, in the way that he announced it, but later on he started really like adapting based on the feedback I gave him, and I'm honestly a little bit grateful that he did. He was it shows that he was able to look at himself based on what I told him, or what I indirectly told him, and able to adapt with it. And I visited him a few times after that, and we were friends. We spoke to him. He's a really cool guy outside of being a teacher. Even before that, when I spoke to him, he was an amazing person, but as a teacher, he was just the most unprofessional person in that room. It was terrible. It was a situation I could not be in any longer after the negligence began. So that also helped me find out who I was. It showed that I was passionate. I started that passion for helping other people. It from the previous year, from the movie, it showed that it stuck with me. That I deliberately left the class myself and submitted that for future students to have a better experience than I did. And it paid off. And deep down, I was ecstatic about it. The fact that I was able to make a change in some way for my friends and my fellow classmates that were there, as well as any future students that will never know me. They won't ever know who I was, who I am. Yet they will, I want to say, reap the benefits of me speaking out against that teacher. That's something that I take pride in, honestly. That I actually stood up to authority and was able to make a change for the better. But then after that, one more, that semester passed, I did it, and I asked the school, could I be my old teacher's assistant? Because the fact that he taught me so wonderfully by himself, with no help, it was amazing. But I saw him killing himself, running back and forth across the room when so many students had questions. Some students would get a little impatient and like show some attitude when he couldn't get to them in time. There were a lot of students and he couldn't do it all by himself. So I asked if I could be his assistant, and they actually let me be his assistant. They paid me too. I was almost like a part of their. I wasn't really a part of staff, but they had like little jobs inside of that trade school where students could assist the staff in some way, and they would be compensated. And I became a part of that. Like, it was the very beginning of them doing that, and I joined right on time. So I became an assistant teacher I did it for a year. And that was honestly the best experience of my life. It was the most enjoyable thing to be able to teach that material. Well, I didn't stand in front of the classroom and teach it, but I was helping every student. Whenever they needed help, I would go over it immediately, explain it to them, show them how to do it. Well, not show them, I would guide them on how to do it. And then just the payoff when they're like thank you, I got it now. That really those moments touch me more than anything. The the gratification that I get from it, from helping somebody else, was something out of was something out of this world. It was it was just terrific. It was in that moment when I truly found who I was as a person. The moment that I was standing in a classroom and teaching, the feeling of gratitude being pushed towards me from other people, it was unlike anything that I felt before. And I found my calling at that point. I was I was extremely happy. And it was a while. I was waiting for that moment when I would actually find it, that where everything was okay. Well, just give me one moment. Well, um, okay, well, yeah. So it was at that time when everything just seemed to click. I was teaching, I was enjoying it, I was getting paid. It was just a terrific experience. I was loving it. And then, and then honestly, I'll talk briefly about it. So it was during that time when I was teaching the second class, because at that point the classes switched from 1 year to a 1 semester class. And I was helping out a student. She would it was she was she was mentally impaired. Just she was a little mentally impaired. So I paid a little extra attention to her because she wouldn't comprehend things as quickly per se as as any other student. Where like if I were to explain the inner workings of a hard drive or something, let's say, then if I were to explain that, other students would probably catch it, and she would probably miss one bit of information that where it wouldn't click immediately. So I would go to her and I would explain it, you know. But eventually she became so grateful, to the point where she would indirectly throw hints at me of, "Do you have a girlfriend?" And in my mind, I was like, "Are you serious? Like, why?" Like it wasn't. It had nothing to do with her being mentally impaired. It was more of, I'm a teacher. Why is this going on? But that continued to go on, and this brings me to another big hurdle of my life, where I honestly felt alone. I was extremely happy and I found myself in everything. I loved helping other people, but then the realization kinda struck that, that, I hit that, like, sorry about that, give me a moment, let me get this, let me get my thoughts in check. Okay, so, I found out that I thoroughly love helping people, but because that I really love helping people, I thought to myself, why haven't I found somebody, you know? I don't go out and do, I don't go out and do stuff, but why haven't I found somebody? The thought just passed my mind. I love helping people. I can only mean good. I don't ever have any ill intentions. But why am I alone? Why do I feel alone? And then from there came a certain, I want to say sadness. I wasn't sad, but there was just a void, you know? It wasn't anything that would stop me from being happy, but it was something in the back and like in the side of your head that you can recognize that was there. So with this girl, all of a sudden, I want to say and I want to say that she thought she was being clever with the way that she was asking, but it was extremely obvious. So the very first hint that she tried to throw indirectly was caught immediately. But it was at that time where I started thinking about, what is love? What is it really? When I was, you think about a lot of people usually think about that stuff maybe in high school. But I was busy focusing on refining myself before before I even thought about any of that. So when this decided to roll around, um, when this opportunity came around, that's a terrible way to talk about an opportunity. When this event happened, I decided, you know what? Let me give this a shot. It's better than being alone. Someone cares. When you have someone that cares, it feels amazing. For me especially, it doesn't take a lot to make me appreciate somebody. If someone were to text me randomly, "Hey there, how are you doing today?" That text alone is enough to make me feel incredibly, to make me feel happy as hell. If one person texted me and said, "Yo, how are you doing today?" I would feel so grateful to you for taking even 5 seconds out of your time to even type that to me. So even if I didn't respond, that was enough to make my day. I'll tell you right now. So we started dating, I'll say. If you consider me going to work dating, whatever. But as time went on, it became apparent because of one incident that happened. She had a sort of mental breakdown of sorts because of her mental instabilities. And there was something about it, okay, because I love helping people, but at this point she wasn't a friend. At this point she was my girlfriend. So there was a certain urgency that I felt with that. So no, she wasn't it wasn't a mental breakdown. She was feeling like dehydrated, lightheaded. I think it wasn't a full-scale mental breakdown, but she was freaking out because of what was happening. So I brought her to the nurse, so the nurse's office, sort of counselor, that area. Yeah, I brought her to the main office. There was some water there. She drank some water. We sat her down, and we put her into the counselor's office. And it was at that point when it was revealed that we were together. And I was admittedly pretty nervous because of the nature of the situation. I'm an assistant teacher, and she is a student. And at that point in time, it was like, shit hit the fan in my head. I was already considering, like, what is gonna happen. But what ended up happening was that I instead of teaching the AM class, I began teaching the PM class, and she stayed in the AM class because we couldn't be in the same class. That makes sense, even though, for officially that makes sense. I had no intention of, giving her better grades, but It had to be done, sadly. But time went on. Let's fast forward a couple months. It was at this point when I was already feeling comfortable with her, but honestly, I I was figuring out more about what love is and how I really felt, and it was it became apparent that I had to ask myself, do am I really in love? Sadly, I mean, I think back to it and I feel terrible about it because we went into the relationship, but I went into the relationship for the wrong reason. I didn't go into it because I was in love. I went into it because I didn't want to be alone. And that's the wrong reason. That's not that's not how relationships work. The relationship has to be it's a two-person thing. It's you have to one person pushes, the other one pulls. It's not one person pushes while the other one rides along and just holds on to whatever they're pushing. But it has to be a team effort. And it started taking a toll on me. It, as time passed, I felt more and more am I helping her at this point? I feel is I knew I was helping her, but my mental state was deteriorating with each day. There was a mental thing about her that it didn't bother me. Oh no. It kind of bothered me, only because of how I feel, because of how I felt. I don't want to go into too much detail because because for her own privacy. I don't want to I don't want to expose the things into the world for that. Um but there were things going on in her mind that began that I don't want to say conflicted with me, but I was already going through my own struggle of am I in this for the right reason? I don't want to break anyone's heart. That's just I hate hurting people. I don't like to hurt people. And I was already feeling like I was riding the road, so if I continue this, they're going to be hurt. That I felt good that I helped her, but it's going to end. That's how I felt. I felt terrible. But in the end, we somehow managed to, we broke up, but it was on very good terms, thankfully. I thank God for that. I mean, the last thing I wanted was to hurt her. I don't like hurting people. That's just not me. But we had a mutual friendship, even beyond that, and it was good from that point forward. But it was then that I really started questioning, what is love? How how does it work? A lot of people don't know, they don't fully understand, they don't fully grasp what love is. They don't know how to handle love in a relationship. Some people handle a relationship completely wrong. But that relationship, my first relationship of that serious nature, really made me question myself on do I know what love is? So so then that entire thing happened. That happened during my last year of trade school. That was a pretty long story, huh? So now after trade school, that was when I finished teaching. The trade school I was in, the co-op tech, you age out at age 21. So I wasn't able to return. And I moved on to a program called NPower. And I originally was going to the program Strive. That they help you find jobs, work on your resume, your professionalism, and things of that nature. And they referred me to a program inside the same building called NPower, which is essentially accomplishes the same thing, except it's specifically for IT. And and especially because I never got my certification, that was an amazing opportunity for me to get back into it. So I took it. I took it immediately. I would like to thank Isaiah Doctor for speaking to me that day. If you're listening to this, I appreciate it. Thank you. And I began relearning IT. I'll say I already knew it, but the refresher. For the certification exam, you have to take 2 tests, and when I was in trade school, I only took 1 test and I passed it. But the second test I never even took. I didn't attempt it. So I did the program. I went through all the weeks, and I got certified immediately. Not around the time when they sent us, I passed it, and then I was certified. I did the program. I did my internship, and it all went through with 2 amazing teachers. They're awesome guys. I love them. They're great. And it was during the people that I met. There's one person in particular. I mean, everyone there was amazing, but there was one person there that that gave me flashbacks back to high school of the energy that he showed me. It was completely unavoidable to not be this person's friend. He knows exactly who he is if he's actually listening to this. We just had a conversation about him the other day about this very topic. But his energy gravitated to me freaking immediately, and it actually kind of scared me. But he's a great person. You know, I wish him the best always. He has a lot going for him with that energy of his. But it was him and a lot of people that cemented who I was into who I am at this very moment. After all the hardships and the struggles, the emotional struggles, the principles of everything, the morals that I've learned through everything, my circle of friends at NPower, the teachers, the staff at NPower, it all came full circle, and I found out who I was. Everything blended together after NPower, especially because I expressed an interest in teaching, and I was extremely lucky after I completed the program to be able to actually teach the program. So I would have my second bout at teaching with NPower, and I did it for another year. I taught 2 classes, and it was such a good experience. I loved it. The first class, I graduated on class 32. Class 33 was so enjoyable. Amazing class. I thoroughly enjoyed all the events that took place, all the students. I'm still friends with some of them to this day. If you guys are listening, I appreciate you guys always. Class 34 was a bit of a mixed bag, but as a teacher, I loved it. I love teaching. I love helping people. Teaching coincides with my love for helping people so much. If I could be a teacher, if I could teach IT forever, I sure as hell would. I just fucking love it. Excuse the profanity, but that statement warranted it. So it was while I was teaching with NPower, especially in the second class, because the first class it was smooth all the way, and all the guys were awesome. The teaching, it was a blast. That was the best time along with trade school of my entire life. I loved it. Go when you come to work smiling, having such a good mood about it. You teach, time just flies. You go home, you feel great. You feel fantastic. Then the second year happened, and some events transpired. Some unfortunate events transpired, and I was handed a very awkward situation in in class. In a nutshell, it was it was kind of a split room between me as the assistant instructor and the actual instructor. It was a split room on who they favored, strangely, because of the different teaching methods and things that were happening within NPower that I noticed. I am not speaking ill of NPower at all. It is an amazing program if you know you want to do IT. By all means, go to NPower if you're within the age requirement. I believe the age requirement is 25. I may be wrong. You can search it up on Google. It's capital N Power. Um, it's an amazing program if you know you want to do IT. I highly encourage anyone who knows for sure that IT is their passion to do it. If you're not sure if you want to do IT, I wouldn't advise it. I would recommend you could contact me if you're wondering about IT. I'd be more than willing to help you out there, honestly. But if you're going to NPower looking for what you want to do, that's not the place. That's for if you're seriously committed to doing IT. It is an amazing program with amazing staff. But when I entered the program, I went when it was more of a find out what you're trying to do sort of thing. At least that's how it felt. And how I feel it should be taught. You should be taught you should be taught how to do things. You should be taught the topics and the understanding of the workings of a computer. The way that the room was being run was preparation for the exam 90% of the time. If you prepare for an exam most of the time, how does that transfer into real world application if you've never experienced it? And that was the biggest gripe I had with my second class as I taught it. And that was one of the most frustrating times of my life that I've had, because something was pushing against my passion to teach, and I didn't have enough control to be able to change it substantially. And and as a result of it, the room became very split, and it was a very uncomfortable situation for me. I mean, there were moments when I enjoyed it thoroughly, but I feel like the situation was stirred up a bit too much. It shouldn't have. The students didn't need to go through that. I want to say that it shouldn't have been an experience the students had to feel. But because I was there, I was very glad I was there to help out some of the students through the time, because some students were going through some frustrations as well, and I'm glad I was at least able to help those students. Um, One of them in particular, I want to say his name. His name was Demetrius. He was especially frustrated with the class, but there was just something about him that I didn't want to give up on him. He was he had a certain discipline about him that that I noticed within him. A lot of students come motivated, some more than others, admitted, of course, but Demetrius, he was a very passionate person. Whether or not he wanted to do IT, he of course did. That was undeniable. But he when you're faced with an opposition, your 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 vision gets foggy towards your goal. You don't start to lose sight, but you lose sense of direction when you're trying to accomplish your goal. And I wanted to keep him on the right path. And I did as best as I could. I really helped him a lot. I hope he's doing all right. I think about him every here and there. I hope he's doing great, because some students I remember more than others. I remember most of my students, but it's the ones that struggled and put forth a big effort, whether or not they fail or succeed, that I tend to remember the most. And he was definitely one of them. He showed the amount of effort he showed was extraordinary when he stayed after class to study all the time. He was constantly quizzing himself, and he was improving all the time. And that was something, admirable. As a teacher, I was still inspired by that, you know? And through him, I figured out another aspect of me that I still hold. Where, I mean, even before him, the moment that I started teaching N-Power, because of my two teachers, there was one rule that I always told my students, or one statement that I always told them, and it was this. I always started off orientation asking one question to both classes, AM and PM. I asked them this: is there anybody in this room that is smarter than you? And of course, naturally, nobody answered. That's a very, touchy subject if someone's smarter than you. But nevertheless, I asked the question, is anybody in here smarter than you? So I told them, no one answered, so I answered. The answer is that no one in here is smarter than you. Because being smart, you know what, no, I clarified it like this. I told them no one in here is smarter than anybody. So people in here can be more knowledgeable than you. It's only natural that somebody can know more about something than you, but being smart is being able to apply your intelligence to whatever you're doing. Because if you know everything about the world, but you have no idea how to apply what you know in the real world, are you viewed as smart? That's what I believe. I believe that everybody is smart in their own way. Everybody has a certain intelligence about them. Everybody does. Someone may view intelligence as being, the stoic, righteous, I don't know, how do I describe it? Like a regular office worker, someone that does the number crunching and they know all the right things to say to a customer. Someone can say that is a smart man because he can do all these things and he holds himself in a certain way and he speaks properly. People will say that he's smart, that he's intelligent. He's an intelligent man. But you can be born and raised here in Harlem. You can grow up poor. You may not have the best education even. But if you know certain things and you can apply them in a correct way, then you are smart. You may not know a lot about politics, maybe. You may not know a lot about economics. You may not know how to do taxes that good. But if you know still know how to go about getting the job done and in an okay manner, you are still smart in that aspect. Some people don't know what to do when it comes to taxes. Some people still ask, where can I go to get these taxes done? Things like that. Everyone is smart in their own capacity. And that's something that I want everybody to know. Not just as a teacher, me personally. Because, back to the topic of me wanting to help everybody, I want everybody to know that that you have the power to help yourself, and you also have the power to help someone else. And as long as you help someone else, they can also help someone else. And through that, no one no one will fall behind that you know. You'll bring everyone up with you, and that's something that I wholeheartedly take pride in. I love to raise others, even higher than myself sometimes. That's something that I genuinely get gratitude from after teaching. That is that is the thing that I feel that I live for. I love to lift people up. And I want to tell one story. one story that really one story that 100% like made me who I am today. It was there's a friend. I think if that friend is listening to this right now, he knows exactly what I'm about to say. So there was a friend that I had, and he was my high school friend. As a matter of fact, he was the same best friend that I had in high school. That I hadn't spoken with him in years, ever since. And he called me one day while I was teaching. He called me and he was like, "How are you doing, man?" And then he was really lost. He was lost about what he was doing, lost about where he was going in life, and he shared that with me. And to this day, I was the moment that I heard his voice, I was extremely like I got happy just hearing his voice again, because I miss my friends. But when he started talking to me about how he was struggling, and he was struggling mentally, he was struggling financially, he was feeling down. It was because he didn't know what to do in college. He didn't know what he wanted to do. And I told him, "Come in. Like, I work at Empower. Come down, man. Let's talk." He came down. I saw him, and I remember the first time I saw him, like, come down the hallway to the door, and I was a little bit stunned because I could see it all in his face. He was drained. It wasn't the same. It wasn't the same energy that I remember from him. It wasn't the same. It wasn't the same drive that I saw back in high school. It was. I could see the suffering. When you see somebody that you know is going through a hard time, you can see it all in the way they stand, in the face they give you, in the way they talk. You can feel it all. So we sat down and we spoke, and I gotta say, I felt bad, but it felt great to speak with him again. But I couldn't help but notice that when we were talking at first, he didn't really have any energy to him. It was almost sad, you know? I mean, not almost sad, it was sad. But I have to stay composed because at that point I'm an assistant instructor in a classroom. But I really felt for him, man. And when I told him about the class, I told him, "Dude, um you got, like, it's hard to find out what you want to do in life, but I'm telling you right now, man, this is an opportunity. I can help you. You just speak with this person, and we can get you started with this, and we can get you, you can find a path through this. You can get started doing something. You can see if this is your calling." And I remember him, after we spoke and he heard that, it's almost like you can see the hope light up. Like, you could see the eyebrows raised. You can see the energy welling up for a moment. It's like bringing an old car back to life when you hear it starting up and it's choking. It was kind of like that. Think about it like that. And from there, after we spoke, then the transition from actually seeing him at orientation, it was it was night and day. Honestly, he looked determined. The determination that I saw within him compared to when I saw him when he was at such a low point in his life, man. There was a moment. There's some times when I think about it that I have to like stop myself because I still get just a tiny bit emotional with it because I seriously wanted to help. I really, really wanted to help him. And to know that I did, it's just, it, I can't describe the feeling. It felt so good. It's unlike anything that I felt before when I saw him come into class that day. And he was honestly one of my best students. He came in with zero knowledge about the inside of the inner workings of a computer and everything. And he ended up being one of the best students. And to come from such a low point in his life, I'm sure, to I want to say overachieving. He achieved so much from that moment that I couldn't help but just like be proud of him as not just as a teacher but as a friend. It really that like him he really cemented that feeling of just genuinely like the genuine happiness that I feel whenever I lift someone up from such a low point, even a little bit, even if they're not like if they're at such a low point, their feet are in the mud, let's say, and I lift them up just enough so that the mud isn't ankle high, but now they're standing on top of the mud. That enough, metaphorically, is enough for me. But for him, he rose above that mud. I'll tell you, he went he went pretty good. He went pretty high. He's doing great now, and I couldn't be happier about it. He he helped himself, I helped him, and in turn, without him even realizing, he helped me. And from all of this, every time I think about the the journey that he went through, from the moment when I from when from when we met again, when we had our reunion, I think about when I was when I was a kid, from the very beginning of this story that I just explained to you over the last hour and a half, just about. Jeez, if you're actually still listening to this, I applaud you. I genuinely thank you for listening throughout all of this. But it really makes me think. After thinking about his journey, I think back to when I was at the beginning of my journey, finding out who I was, finding out where I belong in life. It all eventually comes full circle in some way, shape, or form. And for me, it took it took until I was 23 years old, just about 22, 23 maybe, until I finally figured out who I was and who I am in this world. It it took me a lot longer than it does for most people on average, but is it a journey that I'm proud of? Definitely. I'm proud of this journey that I took. But do I like who I was back then? Admittedly, I don't. I really look back in disgust at who I was, and I know that's terrible on my part. I accept who I am, or I accept who I was. I accept that I was the very antisocial, ignorant to the world, um, anger induced kid, and I hated who I was. I I don't understand what I was doing with myself, why I put myself through that, but that's just how life is. That's just how life is sometimes with some people. And then through high school with me having more friends but still not, I developed relationships with other people, but I haven't developed the relationship with myself. I didn't know who I was, so I was still just as lost as I was years before that. So did I really make progress? In one way, yeah, but in general, no. I didn't make any progress. It wasn't until trade school that I definitely found out that I found the path on who I was, and now here I am at age 24. Ever since all the way from elementary school, now here I am doing, just I can't even find the words. But after Empower, I just kept it going, man. This is who I am. My name is Hector. I am 24 years old. I have an intense passion for helping people. I want to give hope to people. I want everyone to be inspired. I want everyone to believe in themselves. It believing in others is easy, I want to say. It's easy for me to believe in you, but to believe in yourself, sometimes that takes a lot of strength. And sometimes, in order to get the strength to believe in yourself, you need somebody to believe in you. And even then, they probably still won't believe in themselves. But you still have to show that it's possible for them to believe in themselves. And that's the lesson that I kind of got from when I helped out my friend at Empower. And I would do it all again. He was part of the he was a part of the second class that I told you where it was a split room. That was the class he was a part of. And I endured it, but I'll tell you, I would gladly do it again for any of my friends. I mean, at this point, I can't do it again. I mean, I could teach you everything I taught him outside of a classroom. But if I had to stand in that classroom in that same environment and do it again for someone else, it's a feeling unlike any other for me. After Empower, I did a temporary job, and during that temporary job, I got sick. And this was one of the most it was one of the most weird experiences of my life because I caught a chronic illness. If you don't know what a chronic illness is, in short, that means I have a lifelong illness. I have ulcerative colitis. If you don't know what that is, it is something similar to Crohn's disease. If you don't know what Crohn's disease is, well, I'll explain to you in a nutshell what ulcerative colitis is. Ulcerative colitis, in a nutshell, generally means that my stomach, the healthy everybody's bodies have healthy bacteria, and the healthy bacteria in my stomach is being attacked. My body my colon, the germs, my colon is being attacked because my body is identifying the healthy bacteria in my body, in my colon, to be a hazard. So essentially, my body is combating itself. So, I have to take pills for the rest of my life. And when I was told that in the hospital, when you get told you have a lifelong illness, you immediately think of you immediately start to question your own morality, your own mortality, that's the word. You immediately question, how am I going to go on, and am I going to be healthy? Is this going to be, a struggle, and how am I going to do this? And those thoughts hit me immediately, but throughout throughout my week and a half, I think I was in the hospital for a week and a half. They had to, man, I was hooked up for like 2 weeks, and I had a lot of thinking to do in bed for that week and a half or 2 weeks. But through that through that experience, it was when I finally became content with my life as a whole. I became I I remember at one point having a thought. Having my I remember having this thought. It felt so bizarre that I actually had that thought, but I was just laying there with the sun hitting my face, wishing that they would close the damn blinds. And I actually thought to myself, if I died here, I would be very happy. Not in the sense that I wanted to die. That's absurd. I would have been happy because I look back on how many people I've helped already. I look back on the students' lives that I've influenced on after I left that class in trade school. I look back on my friends from high school, even that couple from high school that I spoke to. I helped them. I look back on the students. I look back on the students from trade school that I've taught, some have become my friend, some that I still know to this day. I look back on the students from NPower. I look back on my fellow classmates from NPower that are now going on to do great things. I look back on the students that I've taught at NPower, and I had some amazing students at NPower, and I've been so proud of all of them, honestly. Okay, I've been proud of 95% of them, honestly, but I've been so proud to have been able to help them. And there are some students specifically that I helped more than others, especially one. Especially one, she was a part of class 34 that I helped extensively, even in her own life. I'm very close friends with her even now, and I even helped her on a personal level through finding her path in life. And I look back on all of that from that day in that hospital bed, and I just decided if I were to die in that hospital bed, I knew it wasn't gonna happen, but if I were to die in that hospital bed, I would be happy with all that I've accomplished at that point already. And it was then that I decided that from what I've done from that point, I'm already content. I've been content with my life, and from that point forward, I'm adding more on top of what I'm already proud that I've done. You know, it's that's how I feel about my life. I'm I'm very happy with what I've done, despite not being happy with who I was. I was able to break away from who I was and become who I am today. And I'm proud of myself for being able to accomplish that. I'm very proud of myself for being able to accomplish that. And I believe if anyone else is having any doubts that are similar to mine, they can do it as well. Hell, they could even do it better than I could. If they could definitely do it better than I could. What I did wasn't extraordinary, but for me, it's good enough. For me to be happy, it's good enough. And after I got out of the hospital, it's almost like I was a different person once I walked out. I'm still, I gotta take my medicine every day. I feel a bit older. I Now I'm currently working in construction as a flagger. I'm not doing the heavy lifting, but I'm making sure the people doing the heavy lifting are safe. So I'm controlling traffic and such as a flagger, and I'm content. I'm content with that. I'm happy with who I am. I'm happy with what I've done, and I'm just happy with how life has been for me so far. And I'm just glad I was able to share this with you all. I'm sorry that this ended up being an hour and 40 minutes. I honestly didn't think it was going to be this long, but I just went on and on and on, and maybe I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry, but if you're still listening, thank you wholeheartedly. I give you my heartfelt thanks for listening to all of this. It's an honor that you actually not sat through, whatever you're doing. If you were walking down the street and listening to this, I am honored you actually took the time to listen to everything I had to say. From listening to me talk about myself, like I don't mean to come off as selfish. I just genuinely felt like I wanted to share my story so far what my story is with all of you. I feel like everyone can benefit from listening to someone else's story. You can never be too sure what someone has really gone through unless they sat down, stopped, and meditated on it, thought about who they are, where they came from, how are they doing now, the journey from point A to point B to point C to D to E, all the way until Z. That can really help someone else grow, I believe. And I just want to see everyone else. I want to see everyone grow. I want the world to be, I would like for the world to be unified. And I may not be alive when it finally does. If, what, I believe it will. It definitely will. I believe our generation is going to be a big step forward in that aspect. But, a lot is going on, and it pains me to see it. But I believe that we can all make a difference in some way, no matter how small. Me, I may not have made a difference in the world, but I made a difference acceptable for myself with the people that I know. Even the people that I didn't know. I made people that I may not have known personally. I still helped. They've expressed their gratitude to me, and that I can't ask for anything more. I can't ask for anything more in life. So I don't really know what else to say. So I guess I will end it here. Once again, I thank you so much for listening this far into this. And I will close it by saying, my name is Hector Oropesa. I am 24 years old. And this has been my story thus far.